Hi, everybody. Welcome to our afternoon panel discussion. My name is Marina Velikova. I work at Barona Relocation, and just shortly about us, what we do is we work with Finnish employers to help them to relocate the talent that they need to Finland. And I have here today a few representatives of different studios from Finland, and we're going to talk about the relocation processes and how basically what employers do to help them. I have here Katri Raivuori from Business Finland, who will also share how Finland supports employers in this kind of issues. So I was thinking, let's start with very brief introduction. You may have seen our participants today during the sessions, but just very quick introductions. Basically, who is who and what do you do, and maybe we start from Bea.
Sure. Hi, Bea is the name. My career in the gaming industry started when I joined Unity. There we grew from 400 people to 2,600 people globally, so that was quite a ride. In between, I was helping different companies as a consultant, and today I represent Seriously. So we're the creators behind Best Fiends games. That's me.
And Tuuli.
Yeah, so I'm Tuuli. I started my career in the games industry about 7 years ago from Ubisoft. And just a short while ago, I've joined a smaller startup called Dazzle Rocks here in Helsinki. And over my career, I've relocated over 60 people to Finland. So yeah, specialist in that.
Okay, thank you. Sari.
Yes, hi everybody, my name is Sari and I work as a talent acquisition lead here at Remedy. And I joined Remedy about 3 years ago when we basically started building the team for P7, which is now known as Control, that came out last year. And we've grown to be around 300 people now at Remedy, and over 50% come from abroad. So yes, have a few words to say about relocation.
Great. And Katri.
Hi, I'm Katri from Business Finland, and I work as a project manager in the Talent Boost program, and we do everything that we can to help the talents and companies to match.
Perfect. So we have prepared a few topics that we were thinking to discuss and to share some practical experiences. As you can see, our guests are very experienced and they have very much hands-on experience. But please feel free to also ask any questions in the Q&A section. Oleg will help me and keep an eye on this, and maybe at the end, if we have time, we'll go through them. But if not, then we will cover them a little bit later. Okay, so I was thinking that we start with just in general how the Finnish gaming studios support their recruits in their relocation. So maybe if you can share some very practical experience, how do employers help their new talent who come outside of Finland to relocate? And actually today I had a talk with one person who their city from Finland to Helsinki. So maybe this could be also an interesting angle to discuss. So Tuuli, would you like to start?
Yeah, so first of all, it's kind of hard to say in general what every company offers because companies are very different. But I would say that in most cases where there are studios who have like previous experience from relocating people, obviously we help out with all of the official stuff in terms of like the paperwork and actually the logistics of getting here, flights, moving, stuff like that. But it really kind of depends on the company itself, what kind of package is on offer at what point. And but I would say that the main things have to do with sort of like the more general paperwork stuff. But in addition to that, it's also about the emotional support and the cultural onboarding as well. So I think that's the other side of the benefits.
Yeah. Bea, would you like to add anything, or what is your experience?
Yeah, pretty same. So yeah, we help with the most practical crucial practicalities. So the paperwork, residence permit, getting the tax card and bank account and everything else. I think those are one of the most crucial things. Maybe finding an apartment as well. And then there's some monetary support as well. And then the social aspect. For example, someone coming from Hong Kong is completely different working environment. And then someone who's coming with the family from outside of EU, that's also a different kind of situation. So case by case.
Yeah. What about Sari? Would you like to also add something?
Well, similar categories and areas that you've all mentioned. So for us, we provide the relocation agent that will then support our candidate with all the paperwork, finding an apartment. That's apartment markets are very different in each country, so that's a big deal. The social aspect is maybe the most crucial thing. So having that support network in Finland when you arrive. I think Katrin was actually talking earlier. So Katrin is working with us, for example, on Team Finlandization, which is social networking activities for our expats and their spouses, for example. So these kind of areas, things, yeah.
Okay. And Katri, I know that you have talked about these things in your earlier presentation, but I really would like to also raise these kind of issues again. Finland has been working quite a lot on basically on even governmental level to improve to prepare employers to be better equipped to receive talent from abroad and to find the talent from abroad. So can you very briefly just share basically what Business Finland is doing and how do you support employers and employees to match?
We are trying to lower the barriers in hiring international talents because sometimes they are scared and they don't, they have to change the language and stuff, especially if it's the first international talent. So we are offering funding for companies so they would take that step and then get more diversity in their company. And also we have a job board where companies can free of charge, they can advertise their open jobs. And also that's also for talents, as in there's English speaking jobs for them. So just to mention a couple of things.
Yeah, awesome. You already mentioned what is basically our next question. I was thinking that we discuss about what is the most essential help that employers help. So from your personal experience, what do you find is the most essential help that people usually need? Is it the paperwork or is it something else?
So maybe I can pick from that. It really depends on the person. Some people require more sort of in-depth conversations about the culture and, especially if someone has a family, usually people are very worried about, how do I get a school spot or a kindergarten spot for my child, or is there support for my spouse and what kind of support? So it really varies. But I would say that some of the most common ones that I've encountered during my career relates to the actual paperwork, because it can take up much time, and you need to provide all kinds of documents, and you're not necessarily sure what you need to provide and when and so on. So that's obviously one. But then in addition to that, housing is probably one of the ones that we get more questions about.
Yeah. Sari, what would you say that in your experience is the help that the people need the most?
I would say it's kind of going between two, the apartment search and understanding the apartment market. In which areas do you want to locate to, and how does it all work? So that's definitely something if we can, and we are helping with that. And then the social aspect is just some people have, in this industry, if they are more experienced, they might have relocated before. For some, it might be the first time, but nonetheless, having that support for how to get used to a new culture, new environment, and then weather and darkness. That's something that I discovered that is the biggest thing where we need to kind of help and guide.
Yeah, I think that's an issue for locals as well. So heads up for this, that we all struggle with it. Bea, would you like to add something?
Yeah, well, I think those were probably my top 4 as well, like the most crucial stuff. So the residence permit, then when the person comes to Finland, then the second step of paperwork, and then apartment search and social aspect. Yeah. But you were talking about the weather, so of course one crucial part is expectation setting,
Yes.
being honest where you are relocating, because every single country has its good and bad. So being honest about that as well.
Yeah, and I mean it comes down to the fact that, I've relocated a bunch of people who had never seen snow before. And it's all about setting the expectations and actually helping out. Where can you buy a winter jacket without spending like €1,000? Stuff like this. So it comes down to very sort of nitty-gritty basic stuff, everything from how to get a winter jacket to then like the very high level, very official stuff that comes to the paperwork and all that. So
yeah,
like
what's with all these different milks? I don't get it.
There's like 1,000 different milks in the grocery store.
And this brings me actually to the next point regarding family relocation. And Johan shared about the spouse program, which is a really great initiative that the city of Helsinki, actually the capital area cities, are providing the talent and their spouses to basically to settle in. And my experience is also that usually the families relocate when there is families relocating, the employee is settling in well, and they do find the social environment. Then children usually are very agile and they learn the language, but then spouses are very often left to not to give up completely maybe many things, but to find their way here. What is your experience in that? How do you think that how much family employers can support families? And I'm happy to see that also there is initiatives that support employers to do this help. What do you think that maybe if you have some new ideas, it would be also awesome to hear.
I mean, for me, when I speak to candidates beforehand, one big and important aspect is to understand also is the family that's arriving and being able to already before they arrive to help with expectation management and giving like already, because building a network is what's crucial for the spouses and partners who arrive if they don't have a job already lined up here, and having a good network. So there's luckily very good initiatives and groups. There's from the games industry, there's different ITDA and those. So I usually try to send in advance different kind of like Facebook groups and other groups where like you can already, before you move to Finland, you can already join and start building your network here and find other people who are kind of in the similar situation and learn from them. So that's one area. Learning Finnish, we all know it's one of the hardest languages to learn in the world, and luckily in the capital area, actually, I have so many of the Remedians and then my other friends who moved to Finland years ago. They, you get by with English just fine, but understanding some basic words of Finnish. So when you go to look at the milk section and you have like tens of different kind of milks and you try to figure out what you're buying, we for example have provided like Finnish lessons, and that's always also meant for the spouses and partners as well. So then you do know what kind of milk you're buying next time you go to the shop.
And I also think that the games industry in general, the great thing is that a lot of the people in the Finnish games industry are expats. So you kind of already have this community around you when you arrive. And there are a lot of people who have gone through the same thing that your family or you yourself are going through. So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of richness in the fact that a lot of the studios in Finland already have a big expat population in them. So there's already sort of this like natural support system in the workplace as well.
That's true. And the team Finlandization that we have at Remedy, led by Catherine, we also have specifically like networking and socializing events that are just for the spouses and partners separately. So they can get to know each other and you know, make a group of friends from there as well. And I try to, as much as I can, also keep in mind, like, what are all the people who've joined Remedy, like, what are their partners interested in, what are they doing, and sending links of, hey, here's this kind of school and here's this kind of company. I'm so happy that now there are, like, from Business Finland and from other organizations, these different kind of networks and job boards where you can now directly go and find that information. So it makes life much easier.
Yeah, there's so many good initiatives also from the city's point of view, like what kind of projects Business Finland has, and the city of Espoo and Helsinki and Tampere. So many good things have happened during the past 3 years or so. International House Helsinki didn't exist before 3 years ago.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah. And are you? I was thinking that maybe next we move on to maybe the onboarding process. So how do you build? Maybe this is also important for some employers who are also listening now, that maybe they don't have that much experience in recruiting from abroad. Can you share some tips on how do you create a successful onboarding, especially when you have an international team and when you have people coming in from different cultures? What is your secret to that?
Who goes first? I mean,
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things is definitely accessibility and inclusion. So making sure that the onboarding materials themselves and that is accessible. So making sure that they're in English. And, you know, having documentation also in a language that the whole team can understand, because sometimes, especially when there's the first expat coming into the team, you might realize that, oh, all of our documentation is in Finnish. And, you know, you need to like pivot really fast in that. So making sure that's possible. And also just including those people, being mindful of the fact that, you know, they're coming from a different culture. They might not have like a lot of knowledge about Finland, just being curious about, you know, what do you think about this? And, you know, what has been surprising, and also sort of checking in from time to time, like, how are you feeling? Do you need support? And just as with any other new joiner, but I think especially with people coming from another country, it's important to have those also like cultural check-ins in a way that, you know, do you understand why we do this and why things go this way and stuff like that, and having that time for open questions if they have any and so on.
Yeah, I agree with the accessibility and all that. For us, like, luckily we've been around for 25 years, so it's kind of shifted to English a long time ago. So that part is easy. Everything, it is a very international studio for us, so there is not that big of a shock for somebody coming from outside of Finland. And we, for example, have made sure that we have a dedicated person from HR who is responsible for certain onboarding processes, and then also our supervisors are really like, we have supervisor trainings, and we make sure that our HR supervisors are really attending to the newcomers and making sure that they do have a smooth beginning and that they catch up on everything that's going on, especially now with with the remote work and Corona time. Because in the past, also a big deal, we had a lot of social activities, like in-person game nights and stuff like that. So it was a bit easier also to make sure that somebody can get onboarded and accustomed to the company culture. Now, well, we have Zoom, we have remote game nights and all that, so had to kind of reinvent some of these things, which has been interesting, definitely.
And Katri, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. So we have obviously different follow-up sessions as well, like after 1 month, 3 months. After 3 months, we have a face-to-face HR chat with the new joiner, but also face-to-face meeting with the hiring manager, making sure that everything is up to date. But then what's for all employees is that we have this office vibe survey. So it has 20 questions, and we try to get the feeling of the pulse, like what's the pulse of the company and everyone included in the company, and how are everyone feeling. And transparency is actually one of our like culture cornerstones. So what we expect from new employees is also to speak up their mind if they feel that that the employer is not being supportive enough on some matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then language courses is part of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think with us it's
Cool.
a lot about collaborating with the cities, because a lot of cities have these services. So we try to bring those up and collaborate with the cities so that everybody can find the right service, because there are a lot of services and not everybody knows about them. So it's about bringing the right ones
To make
visible as well.
Yeah. And I think you just mentioned, Sari just mentioned about the COVID situation. So of course, this also brings a lot of concerns. How has this affected the recruitment and actually the relocation processes? How have you managed to handle this issue?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we are really grateful that we have a very good relocation partner that's very well connected and understands, is connected with the government, Migri, and so on. So they will know kind of what the different changes are. Yes, for sure, there were surprises during the spring when all this started. None of us, I don't think, could expect how long this thing could last. But for us, I mean, we're growing the same pace as before. So some changes, obviously, because for our recruitment process, the final step has always been an on-site visit, coming to the studio, meeting everybody in person, seeing the country. Obviously, right now, we've had to reinvent things a bit and do stuff online and find out, like, how do you do, like, team outing with the candidate online? Because you can't take them to a restaurant for dinner or anything like that. So, but yeah, so some surprises in terms of like relocation. You might have to be aware that if there is a lockdown happening, then there might be delays with arriving. But we've actually been lucky enough to have everybody join us pretty much on time. Not like big delays for anybody. So, and we are very mindful of that. Our supervisors, hiring managers, they all understand that right now it might take a bit longer for somebody to arrive, but that's kind of all accounted for. So,
yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I think definitely COVID has made the process a little bit longer in some cases, and it kind of depends, obviously, of the region, as Sari mentioned as well, if there are lockdowns or any other restrictions happening in the location you're coming from. So it really depends. But I also, like, from my understanding and from what I've been hearing from the industry, is that things are going on in a similar fashion despite COVID. People are just working more remotely and so on. So relocations are still happening. It hasn't stopped. It's just become a little bit different than what it used to be.
Yeah, I think the trickiest one for us has been identification. So if you haven't been able to, if you can't really start the residence permit process because you're unable to identify yourself because the closest Finnish embassy is closed, for example, case Belarus. So if we have a candidate in Belarus and the closest Finnish embassy is in Vilnius, but Lithuania has closed their borders, so it's, yeah, so then we just need to look into different kind of options that we have, and expectation setting again, you know, this might take a long time. What are our options? In this case, the person is, because we have our mother company has an office in Belarus, so the person is actually now employed by by Pleitika, that's working for us. So this is like a temporary situation or solution that we then figured out. Yeah.
Very creative ways, and I can also maybe share from my experience with working with different employers. Everybody has been very creative and found this kind of different ways to start the work remotely and to keep the, you know, to wait or have been very patient. So I think that I can sum up that from employer's perspective, at least, especially in the gaming industry, recruitments continue as usual, and they just wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think
it's still happening.
Yeah, I think the major sort of changes to the process happened last spring. I remember in my previous company, we had a situation where there was one person who was supposed to come in from China, and he was actually living in the Wuhan area, and obviously that was one of the first places to get locked down. And his arrival to Finland was delayed by many months because of it, because obviously everything was still new and the world was just learning about COVID at that point. But now I would say the situation is much better. And obviously there are a lot of skilled relocation partners working in Finland to make sure that the processes go still forward, even though there might be delays and stuff like that. So
yeah,
and I think expectation management and communication is crucial here as well. So for us recruiters, for example, we need to be just a bit more in touch, with the candidate and kind of everybody understands the unique situation. So just kind of keeping everybody up to date that things are moving forward, and nobody's left alone anywhere. So people, it's just going to be a bit slower, but we are, the Finnish game industry is growing, and we are hiring globally. So yeah.
It's been really nice to see how many job openings have been on the board. So I think that this is a very clear sign about this as well.
Yeah.
And Katri, I was thinking to also raise the support that Business Finland has been providing to employers, especially during this year. Would you like to mention also a few words about that?
Well, we've had a sort of non-talent boost related support. We've had the Corona funding for companies in order for them to survive. And that was a pretty sort of a quick lift up and a quick reaction to the market needs. And well, after that, we have other funding options. And then we have the talent boost funding. So we have been trying to help the companies to get back on their feet. So, and we do a lot of sort of other non-funding stuff as well. We have a lot of platforms and like virtual events, and we try to make everything possible that companies can find the creative ways of moving forward with the recruitments. And we discuss with the companies constantly, so we have a dialogue there.
Yeah. All right. I was thinking that maybe at this stage we can have a look. I see that there has been quite a few questions in the questions and answer in the question section. Oleg, have you managed to pick out a few of those?
I've been reading some of the questions, but maybe one, how much time does it usually take from the moment candidate accepts the job offer to the moment he starts working?
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on that?
I mean, this kind of, if we're talking about candidates coming, obviously, if it's within EU or somebody has EU nationality, then it's more up to the candidate themselves, how quickly they can move and relocate and arrange things in the current location where they are. So it could be even within a month in some cases, depending where they're coming from. But then if we're obviously talking about candidate coming from outside of EU or not an EU citizen, and they obviously need to get the residence permit. So that process itself, I mean, from signing it's a, whereas I would still say that it's a couple of months. Am I completely off here?
Yeah, I'd say that's the shortest, especially for people who are relocating from outside of the Schengen area. The quickest I've been able to relocate someone from outside of the EU is around 1 month, and that was like very, very quick. And we were just able to align all the stars aligned at that point, which is great. But usually I would say that from signing the job offer, it takes around 2 to 3 months. So kind of similar as as previously said, but it really also depends on the situation of the candidate, because sometimes people might have termination periods from their previous companies, which might be several months in some cases, so the wait time is even longer. But in terms of the residence permit program in Finland, the great thing is that almost all games industry professionals are classed as specialists, meaning that they're able to get a specialist permit, and that takes significantly less time than getting a normal work permit. With normal work permits, the process can take anywhere from 6 months to a year, in some cases even longer. But with specialist permits, usually the processing time is around 2 weeks to 1 month. My record, I think, is like 19 hours. So it really depends. So
Yeah.
And we don't know if the person that.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Yeah, we don't know if the question is because now it's different.
Yeah.
But does the person mean in a normal world or now? Because it's of course a problem that the embassies are closed. Then we don't, like India is one of these cases, we don't know when they're going to open. So.
Yeah, I can share our latest case actually. So we got one residence permit accepted on Monday, and it came. So how it went is that. So we checked that, okay, currently it takes 1 to 2 months to get a residence permit if you're in Russia and you're coming with a family. So the moment we signed the employment contract, then we set the start date in 2 months to be safe. And then it takes some time if you're coming with your family, because you need to legalize, for example, the marriage documents and birth certificates. And so all that paperwork takes like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. Depends on what kind of things you need to, what's the word? Legislate. Well, anyway,
legalize.
Legalize, yes. Or, translate and then legalize. So they went to the embassy then to identify themselves. And then the moment when they had all the paperwork done and they submitted it, then it took 1 week to get the residence permit. But they cannot arrive to Finland before their start date because they don't have a valid visa. So even though they have the residence permit, they need to still wait for a month before they can arrive to Finland.
Yeah, I would say that I think the decisions from the immigration office have been actually coming quite swiftly in the past. I think even during this year, it's mostly the identification that has been an issue during this year that is causing the delays. And we have a question relating the housing. You all mentioned that actually the accommodation, finding the housing is a challenge. And the question is, how basically does the company help with finding the process and maybe with financial support, or what is the support that employers often offer for this kind of like for the accommodation part?
Yeah, so we help with finding an apartment, so that we have a little survey, what kind of apartment are you looking for? And then we can see different areas and everything else like that. For example, in this Russian person's case, because he cannot most likely rent an apartment because he's arriving to Finland on the same date as his start date would be, which means that he doesn't have a social security number yet. So all that practicality. So for him, we're gonna find a temporary apartment first. So every case is different, case by case again. And then, there's usually some kind of relocation bonus. So in a way, monetary support, but you can't really pay out the relocation bonus before the person has started working at the company. So that's something that's good to mention already in the early stages, that the bonus usually comes with the first salary payment, and it can't be paid beforehand because technically the person isn't working for the company.
Yeah, similar things for us, the relocation bonus, and yes, good point to mention that's with the first salary, then the relocation agent that helps, and temporary apartments is also what we've done it used to be before Corona times that we'd provide that for the first 2 weeks, because that's actually all you would need to get yourself up and running here and a new apartment found. Now, due to Corona, it's a 1 full month, because the first 2 weeks, obviously, you need to spend in isolation first, and then you get to do all the fun paperwork and going to the apartment showings and all that. So that's there.
Yeah, very similar stuff in terms of, and every case is different obviously. So it's hard to say like one concrete answer to that. But yeah, definitely the support for housing is something that most companies do offer.
Yeah. And there's a question regarding if higher education is basically a problem to relocate. So is this something that a qualified specialist needs? So basically I think this is related to the specialist permit, the special expert permit. So what is your, maybe a quick, this is a very technical question, but maybe quickly.
I just recently had a case where we hired somebody from the US, and they obviously needed a specialist permit. And the game industry, a lot of people are self-educated, and they necessarily don't have the higher education. And in this case, for example, the person didn't have. So you do then need to the company. That's not really for the candidate to worry. It's for the company to then write an official letter explaining why this person with their work experience and the knowledge that they have qualifies for the specialist permit, and why they are needed, and why the higher education is not an issue here. So that was a very straightforward process, and that person is now here. So
yeah, I've had a similar experience from some previous relocations that I've been involved with, and obviously the higher education helps in terms of speeding up the process when the immigration services are checking the applications, but it isn't the whole truth. Let's just say that. And yes, it falls on the company to then sort of verify that why do we consider you being a specialist expert. So
yes, and as I've understood, in Migri, gaming is not an exception, but it's very common. So they know sort of what to expect in this area, so they know how it goes.
Yes. And there's an interesting question related to the support that employers offer to Finnish people who have been living abroad and maybe would like to move back to Finland. And also related to that, as I mentioned, one person today was talked to me about relocating from Oulu to Helsinki. So do employers support these kind of relocations, basically, if the person is not a foreigner?
Actually, I mean, from my previous experiences, we've relocated Finns, but from another country back to Finland. So obviously, then there are quite big costs related to moving from coming from Canada, for example. And yes, then we do provide the relocation bonus in that case to cover for those costs. But then there might be some other areas that you then, as a Finn, you would know how to. You most likely have a bank account already opened in Finland and all that. So that kind of help, is it necessarily needed? Obviously, we will always ask if there's something special, like understanding about schools or daycares, that kind of things. Haven't yet had actually a situation where we would have relocated somebody from north of Finland to the capital. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a few cases in my previous company where we did relocate people from like up north to the south of Finland, and in some cases there were cases where we did offer support with that move as well, but it's really case by case. So again, it's hard to say a concrete answer to that.
Yeah, I think that was more like an expat living, like a Finnish living abroad. But yeah, I guess they would know which milk to buy anyway, so they don't need everything from A to Z.
And the paperwork actually maybe not so difficult, but on the other hand, there is some paperwork that needs to be done, and maybe they might need help. But I guess it's mostly if probably the family is coming along. So maybe exactly what you mentioned, that schools and daycare and perhaps accommodation may be the main things that need to be handled.
We have a few people who have relocated from Kajaani, and if I remember correctly, we did provide them like a small relocation bonus, something to cover the moving costs, but usually like they haven't required any further assistance with finding a new apartment or anything else. They have been quite have taken initiative themselves.
Yeah. Okay, we have time for one more question, and it's a very interesting one. One person has asked, what if the employee doesn't go through the trial period? So usually in Finland, you have the first months are a trial period. So it's a lot of work to have somebody relocate. And of course, on personal level, it's a lot of it's a big decision to relocate. And what happens if then the trial period doesn't go as planned? So what steps do you take maybe to avoid this, and what do you usually, from employer's perspective, how do you manage to avoid this issue, that maybe this unpleasant situation?
Well, I think the first thing is that the recruitment process needs to be fit for purpose, and obviously the company needs to find out as much as possible about the candidates, and the candidate needs to find out as much as possible about the company. So making sure that the expectations are aligned on both sides, and making sure that there are no like big pitfalls there where things could go wrong. Obviously, there's always situations where things don't work out, but I think that a lot of the companies have honed their recruitment processes in a way that they can be fairly sure that things are going to work out. But obviously, with relocations, there are unexpected situations. For example, if the family doesn't adapt to the new country, that's always kind of a big reason for people to then say that this doesn't work out. But yeah, I think it's mostly about the recruitment process being fit for purpose there.
Yeah,
I would kind of chime in on that as well.
Yeah. I can add about how to avoid it. So I think what COVID has taught us is that there's a lot of insecurity in the world, and no one wants to feel insecure. So the more information you provide, the less insecure you are. You know exactly what you're stepping into. So I think 2020 is all about transparency, honesty, and 100% information. I mean, giving as much information as you can. And for example, this year, we have hired some people we haven't met face to face. So that has been interesting. Like, as an employer, are you ready to make that decision to give that offer without meeting the first person face to face? Is that person ready to accept the offer without meeting face to face? Case by case, we still have some candidates that we have agreed to wait. So we can easily wait until the borders are open, and it's a perfect situation for the candidate to come and visit us. So I think the mindset in recruitment should be either way. Like, we're in a remote status at the moment, and some things we just need to wait until both parties are comfortable, most comfortable as possible.
Yeah. So maybe as a summary to the candidates, be active, and it's really awesome to see how active you have been today in all the sessions. So just ask as many questions as you need and be as sure as you can be.
I think there's a good question to end on. Seriously though, which milk should I buy?
Yeah.
I think any milk you buy, it will be good. Just taste them all. It's an experience.
Yes, that's the good thing about Finland. Like, there's a lot of, if you have different food allergies or requirements, there's everything for everyone here. So that's why so many milks.
Yeah. And also, I will add that also the Finnish groceries support a lot of international cuisine. So this really it's very international nowadays.